So I think the storyline in both The Braid and The Witness are really thematic towards the gameplay elements. And when you mentioned The Witness as an art game, I think that is just as important as the gameplay elements. So I'm wondering what motivates like the lore or whatnot behind the decisions.
It's just different for every game, you know. Like for Braid, the way the story was presented in that game and how it worked was part of the original. In the first 2 days, the original picture that I had for it, and then I spent all the time building that out. For The Witness, it was different because I had a picture of what the overall plot and goings on and mystery behind the thing were, and I had an idea for how that was going to happen. Like I knew exactly what was going to happen, and then a year later I was like, oh, that's not very good. It doesn't put enough faith in the player. Because when I started doing it, it was at this time when like achievements were still really big, and mobile games that really string the player along were starting to happen, and I was being subliminally influenced by those. So I was like, okay, I need to have a reason why somebody would do all these puzzles. So I'm going to put a little story in a lockable box at the end, and when you do a row of puzzles, then you'll unlock that and you'll get to hear it. And then, so about a year after I had that idea, I was like, oh, that's really bad. Because if somebody won't play the puzzles by themselves, why are you making the game, right? And a lot of people make games that do have that kind of a thing, but it took a while for me to realize that I was being cowardly in the design and that I needed to address that to get the design to be what it should be, right? Now, it just so happened that had to do with story. But it could have been something else, right? It could have been, some aspect of game design involving difficulty or something. But it was story, so then I changed the story to participate in some other way. And that lasted for a while, but then I kept not liking it. And eventually, what I ended up with was something way, way, way pared back and in the background that I'm actually happy with. And it's just... that was what was right for this game. But it took me a lot of painful thinking about it and revisions to get there. For the next game, it'll be totally different. One of the games that we're talking about doing next is very story heavy. Like it's built around the story, actually, which would be very different from either previous game. So who knows? I don't have a general answer. Just make a good game and see what happens.
And that brings me to the next question. Like, I can feel I myself spent more than 100 hours in the game. So I strongly feel that there's a story in it. Like as if the island is subjective in a way. I mean, I can see there could be boats transporting stones from the quarry to the town and things like that. How and why would you resist telling that story explicitly to people?
Well, that was
if I were you, that after 7 years, I would really want people to know everything.
That was a thing that was decided later on. At the start of development, I thought that we were going to do a story-heavy game, actually. In the game that we actually shipped, there are these audio recordings that you can find and play, but they're usually hidden, and they don't have usually direct story-related things.
Sure.
But originally, there was going to be another set of those that were just your classic video game story recordings like you have in, I don't know, BioShock or pick any game like that, right? But the closer we got to finishing, the more I felt like I didn't want to do that. I want to keep people playing, and maybe I'm not sure that solving puzzles is enough to keep people playing. And it's like, well, but if you're trying to make the best game, and if you're like me, and you're very interested in making this new and subtle kind of gameplay that nobody's really done, then maybe you just need to let the gameplay be forward and make a more quiet place for it to sink in, And so that was the decision that I ended up making on that. And I think, some people on the team even were surprised by that.
Yeah,
You know.
you dump the story, which usually is the center of a game like this.
Yes. Fortunately, we still did fine. You know, like people bought the game, but
Yeah, definitely.
it was not obvious that people would buy the game. And again, that's another one of those things.
Yeah.
You know, when I say it's a weird game, part of that is the gameplay is very strange. You know, it's sort of a puzzle game, but not in the way that most puzzle games are puzzle games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I deliberately said, no, there's no story now. You know,
Okay.
and that's a very serious choice to make.
Yeah.
When it comes to how people will see your game.